Could you please read the roll?
Mr. Bozen.
Here.
Mr. Amos.
Here.
Mr. Morrissey. Here. Mrs. Klein.
Here.
Mr. Foyce.
Here.
Mr. Greider.
Here.
Mrs. Jewin.
Here.
It worked.
Come on, somebody give me a motion.
Mr. Mayor, motion to approve the agenda as proposed.
Second.
Motion been made with second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have an agenda. Let's get those eyes, if you guys on the phone, let's get those eyes moving faster than that, so. But, all right, the first part of our meeting is a discussion of partnership with the University of Northern Iowa, University of Iowa's initiative for a sustainable community. So very sorry about that. Wendy, are you gonna start this off, or what are we doing? Sure. All right.
About a year ago, the University of Iowa approached us to look at a partnership that they've been doing throughout the state for a number of years, where they come into a community with an intensive focus of partnering with that community by doing projects engaging mostly faculty and graduate students. Projects anywhere from engineering to film to public planning, law, marketing, public art, and so on. We've been on the list. It's something we had to apply to be a partner for. Now we're at the point in the process where it's up to you as a council to make a decision that we would partner. I'm going to let the expert, Travis Krause from the University of Iowa, make his presentation, and then I am also will be around to answer questions you might have.
All right.
Travis.
So welcome, Travis. I just want to tell the council members, Councilwoman Jewin and Mr. Amos, if you can put your phones on mute, then we don't have to hear you breathing on the line like that. So thank you very much. Travis, it's your show. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Travis,
Okay, good.
we will need to advance your slides for you.
And council, just a note, you've got the presentations uploaded in Novus too.
So I'm making out most of what you're all talking about. It's a little bit fuzzy, but it sounds like I can go ahead and get started. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I think we may be joined also by Dr. Chuck Connerly, who is somebody I work closely with here at the University of Iowa and the founder of our program, Iowa Initiative for Sustainable Communities. Chuck, are you on the line? Okay, maybe not. So I want to talk a little bit about our program, but of course, just kind of first by saying thank you to you all for making time for having this discussion. I know that you have a lot of really important things that you're thinking about and working on with the COVID pandemic. And so I really just appreciate that we still have this opportunity to have this conversation. I had been planning on coming in person today, and it just seemed like maybe that wasn't the right decision. And then shortly after I had emailed Kelly deciding I would be joining by phone, we got a notification that all non-essential travel was not being allowed anyway. So I think I must have seen that coming. But so I want to just run through what this is all about quickly with you all. And Wendy kind of gave a quick introduction. You should have some materials that help answer some of the questions and provide some information about what it is that we're talking about. But essentially what we'd like to do at the University of Iowa is partner with the Waterloo community for essentially an academic year, which would be the shortest amount of time that we partner together. It could be longer than that if it seemed like that would make sense. And what we do here is have community-based engaged learning and work with communities to solve problems and work on projects within the communities while also providing kind of an enhanced learning opportunity for our students. And so we've got what we call our flagship program at the University of Iowa. It's Iowa Initiative for Sustainable Communities, or IISC. And this is kind of our premier program for working with individual communities throughout the state. It's been around for about 10 years now, and we've worked with quite a lot of communities and have done over 200 projects through this program. This is not the exclusive way to work with the University of Iowa, but it is a special partnership that's recognized by the university and has gained a lot of recognition throughout the state as well. So, as Wendy mentioned, we reached out to her. We were thinking about Waterloo as a prospective partner. It seemed like the timing would be about right with some things that were going on in Waterloo and what we were hearing from Wendy and others. And then we received a letter of interest, an official letter of interest with letters of support from members in the Waterloo community. So that kind of got us up to the point of thinking about whether or not we should move forward with the partnership. You may have seen some news about changes at the University of Iowa in terms of the office that I was working in, which is the Office of Outreach and Engagement. So that kind of changed based on a new budget model. We had a new provost come, and that office essentially kind of changed its role. But we did not want to lose the valuable program that we have, IISC, and so we shifted this into another department, which is our graduate college, which is houses a lot of. It serves all graduate students and it houses some specific programs. So really, it's kind of gone back to where it originated, which is the School of Urban and Regional Planning, soon to be called the School of Planning and Public Affairs, starting next year with a new master's degree in Public Affairs. You should have some slides for the presentation that I kind of want to walk through, but I've also sent, and I don't know if you have this information, but a draft of a resolution that you might think about using in order to kind of solidify moving forward with the partnership, kind of a FAQ to answer some questions that might help you understand what the partnership would look like, and then one sheet that shows what it is when we talk about projects. We have come to define what IISC means through a list of very specific project opportunities. So I'll talk about all of those things. But first, I'm starting with this presentation that has a slide that says University of Iowa and Waterloo Good to Great Partnership for the 2021 academic year. And I put that phrase "good to great" in there because I saw that in the letter of interest that the city of Waterloo, or at least the community of Waterloo, has kind of viewed the opportunity to partner with one of our Regents institutions as an opportunity to advance the community and move from good to great. So I really picked up on that from the letter because I think that is a really good way to think about the way that this partnership can help support the community. So as I move through into slide number 2, I've talked a little bit about this. Again, we're now housed in the University of Iowa School of Urban and Regional Planning. The number of projects that we've had done over 10 years, and then as you can imagine, one of the things that we're trying to accomplish that with this program is not only to support Iowa communities, but also to kind of transform the way that our students are learning at the University of Iowa. So based on everything that we found through our work over 10 years is that this is having a big impact on the way students are engaging with their work, and it really prepares them to enter the workforce and be successful because they have these real world experiences. So we're able to kind of accomplish two parts of our mission because of these partnerships. So moving on to slide number 3, you can see where we've been in terms of full IISC partners. We have a couple of models where we do these full partnerships and they kind of get a lot of the attention, but we do standalone projects. So what you're seeing here with a slide of 10 communities are the communities that were the full IISC partners. You can see there that we've been in regions, we've been in counties, we've been in large cities in Iowa, and then we've been in some smaller cities in Iowa. And the Keokuk one is larger because that's where we're currently working. We're in Keokuk doing about 23 or 24 projects this year with them. Moving on to the next slide, the title of that slide says Emerging Trends. And I include this slide because it just kind of shows that, we have seen issues that I think relate to a lot of communities in Iowa. So as we've been working with communities and receiving proposals for them to become the IISC partner, we've been able to track what it is that communities are concerned about. And so here's a list of some of those things. Obviously, changing demographics is the big one, maybe more so in more rural communities. But this was kind of what we were hearing from communities. And then if you move to the next slide, it talks about like how we turn that information into opportunities. So when we think about how to help revitalize communities, we're talking about downtowns, we're talking about arts and culture, engaging diverse populations, recreational amenities. And then this idea of resiliency too is important, as well as we think about what the impact of environmental changes on communities. And then that final one is really, I think, important as well. Says utilizing partnerships to increase capacity, foster innovation, and build community engagement. And this is something that's important to us, but I think we're seeing that communities are recognizing the need for partnerships in order to accomplish their goals and to move from good to great, right? So those partnerships, I think, are increasingly important. And they're important not only because that's kind of what our program's built around, but also it's important for us to form partnerships with communities across Iowa. So moving on to the next slide, how IISC works. It's really about co-creation and collaboration. We don't want to have partnerships where so there might be an idea and then students disappear for a semester and come back with their work. It's really about working together and collaborating, and that includes not only the graduate students that we're working with. Sometimes those are undergraduate students, but faculty. We work with faculty members that are invested in doing this well. Of course, the staff people, including myself, are invested in the partnerships. And then we look to really have strong community leaders that are working with us to make sure that we're being successful. Our projects are built around the things that you identify that you need in your community. So that's really kind of how we start thinking about what it is that we might be doing. As you'll see when we start talking about the list of project opportunities, I mean, we do have kind of our veterans of engagement on campus here to kind of get the conversation started about the types of projects we could have, and list out some of the opportunities that we might consider moving forward. And then kind of the other thing that happens when we think about how IISC works, is that we really want it to be a community-oriented partnership, and we do see that because of the opportunity to work with students and faculty and to be innovative, we've seen communities really rally around the partnerships and coalesce and work toward a shared vision. So that's one of the things that I think is really positive about this full partnership. So I'm moving along to the next slide. It's another one that says how IISC works. We work with specific courses and classes now, and those are the ones that are mentioned on the one-page sheet, which is kind of shown here as well. And if adding up the number of students that typically take those classes, we're going to be working with, over the course of a year, probably about 50 or more students. We're talking about 15 projects or something along those lines. And then we do track hours for some of those classes, and we feel pretty confident that when we add up all of the work that students do, we're talking about over 10,000 hours worth of work. Of course, they have to get up to speed on a lot of things, but they become quite well versed in the work that they're doing. And then there's also a dedicated staff person, and that's me. And my job really is not only to help the students and faculty be successful and have projects, but also really to make sure that the work that we're doing for communities is very high quality and meets the needs of the community partners. So I think I was hired because I'm able to bring skills and expertise that allow that to happen. My background was in community and economic development. I was a chamber and economic development director in Southeast Iowa, and I was a planner before that. So I kind of can speak the language of the community partners, but also understand the academic world as well. So that's my role, is that I'm kind of helping guide the process, and making sure in the end that the work that we do meets the needs of the community partners. I'm moving on to another slide. The next slide that also says how IISC works. This one's talking a little bit more about the process of working together. So, and what the staff people, what I would do as a staff person here. So, we're at the beginning stage where we're just talking about the prospect of partnering over the course of the academic year without having real specific projects on the table. Maybe you have ideas, but that's not the step in the process that we're at yet. So I can help work with somebody that's a point of contact in the community to identify and develop the projects that we're talking about. We have a framework and process for this partnership that we've been using over the last years and has been refined so that it's kind of a smooth and streamlined process. As I mentioned, I'm a bridge between the community and campus partners, so I stay in close conversation with just about everybody that's involved. And then there are a lot of community visits. There's a lot of data needs and things like that. So we provide that type of support, the technical assistance, travel and lodging accommodations and things like that. And then in the end, of course, I review and edit as necessary the work that the students do so that it is ready for sharing with the community partner. And then the next slide talks a little bit more about what is expected on the community side. So this one talks about community leadership and support is essential to a successful partnership. So first of all, the financial contribution that we would expect is $50,000, and that pays for everything that we've talked about. It's all the projects, all the administrative stuff. Including, one of the projects that we talk about is a mural, for example. Like that just means that contribution covers all of the costs, the artist design fees, which we offer to our artists, and then the material. So if we move forward something like that, those things are all rolled into the financial contribution, so that there's not any additional burden or financial costs for the community. Anything that happens as a result of the partnership that's project related is all covered by that contribution. And then the other investment from the community side is the time and energy from the people that are working on the partnership. So it does get quite busy when there are lots of concurrent projects happening. And I work to kind of manage that whole partnership on my end. And typically we have an individual on the community side that kind of serves that same role where they're kind of thinking about the entire partnership. And then the other people that we rely on are what we call project leads, so that each project has kind of a local project lead in the community that can work with the students, provide the guidance, data, expertise that helps them be successful. So sometimes that project lead is managing 2 or 3 or 4, but that's an individual that is working within the community. So the kind of time investment I think that we're talking about is on average maybe 1 or 2 hours a week. But there is an expectation that because our students are working on an academic calendar that we have people that are responsive. It's not a terribly burdensome thing. It's usually something that people find to be enjoyable. But we do, of course, we just have to make sure that we all continue to make progress once the projects get up and running. I really breeze through those things. Usually I take my time a little bit more to explain that stuff, but I did want to jump quickly to the other materials. And I don't know if you have that sheet that has a list of the projects that has icons on there. Are you guys looking at that at all? So there was another handout that had kind of the draft resolution, and page 2 was an explanation of the project types with icons. And I wanted just to talk through that just for a second before I kind of open it up for questions. You guys, are you able to see that?
We don't have that one attached to the council packet, but I can email that out to the council right after the meeting.
Okay, that's not a problem at all.
Sorry about that.
I'll spend just a minute on this just because these are the projects that we would be talking about. So So like I mentioned, we have kind of bundled together the best of the projects that we've done over the last 10 years, the veterans, faculty members, the ones that produce the highest quality work, and the ones that really kind of respond to the community needs that I talked about and do it in a really kind of fun and cool way. So we have, when we talk about what an IISC partnership means, we're talking about two planning projects that span the entire academic year. Those are second year planning graduate students that for an entire year, this is their capstone project. We would do 5 engineering projects. These are seniors that are in their capstone. When we talk about capstone, this is like really kind of the last step before they go out into the world and start their careers. We do 2 film projects, at least 2 film projects, and these have been a really great addition for us. We have a cinema arts major and program here, and we send out film students, and they do profiles of people that are working in your community, trying to make a difference in your community, and those have been really fun and usually like things that people really appreciate being able to see. We work with the College of Law, so there's a law project that we could do. We work with Tippy College of Business to have a marketing and branding project. And we can't do like things like, we have graphic design students, and we can do things like an entire logo and branding package. We would do a public art project of some sort, and then we work with our library and information science program and our museum studies program to do projects there as well. So that's something that you will have in your email that you can look over, in addition to some questions and answers that I put together to help you understand what the partnership might look like. So there's a lot of information that you can read through. We're looking, I think, this is about the time of year where we're really trying to shore up what it is that we're going to be working on for the next academic year, so we can start setting up those projects. And some students even really are kind of eager to find out what it is they're going to be working on. We're thinking we have the capacity to have two full IISC partners, and we have one locked in, and because of our interest in working in Waterloo. And the interest that's been expressed by your community through the letter, what we're hoping to find out soon from you all is whether or not you want to proceed with the partnership when we start thinking about the next academic year, which should start in August. So with that, I just want to kind of stop talking for a minute so that you can ask any questions or ask for any clarification on anything I've mentioned.
All right, we'll take a few questions at this time. Council? All right, well, not any questions at this time, but a tremendous opportunity. So we thank you for your presentation before. I think they say if you fail to plan and you plan to fail. I keep stealing that quote, but we're always looking about seeing how we can move things forward and move the needle in several different areas. So we definitely will be looking forward to the future and be in contact. So we want to thank you for your time. Sorry about it, like in the middle of a potential pandemic. So time is a little tight right now, but we definitely want to thank you so much. Wendy, any concluding comments?
I just want to say that of that $50,000, that is not necessarily that's not a new budget item. This is money that yes, that's what they need to be paid, but some of these projects that we would be looking at would be done in partnership with the county. They might be done as a Main Street or a tourism project or with a specific department such as engineering, projects that are already in the works for that year as well. So this is not necessarily a new item, but that is the overall cost.
All right. Thank you. Thank you both.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Okay. We are at, what is it, at 4:30, approximately. 4:29, I'm sorry. And we have to wait, it says approximately, so we have to wait 1 minute. Oh, okay. Some of it. Some of it. All right, that wonderful subject we've been talking about for a little while. Got a few revisions. 2 revisions, 3 maybe. Do it, take one and pass it around.
You want me one? Here you go.
We'll have to live without scans today. So after our meetings last Thursday, we looked again, took another look at budget adjustments based on suggestions that council made. So we removed the hiring delays. We removed the reduction in the bonus pay for fire. And we added $250,000 to ambulance revenue for some different ambulance revenue initiatives. So those are the only changes we've made from the proposal that was presented last week. And that will bring us to a tax rate of $18.44026%. And on your rate sheet, I highlighted that heading in yellow. It's option 5. That would result in a residential tax increase of 1.68% and a commercial increase of 5.08%. And I probably should-
Mayor?
Yes,
Mayor?
ma'am. Yes,
This is Sharon.
yes, ma'am.
Are we going to get copies of what you're passing out?
Yes, Mrs. Klein has retrieved copies for you and Jerome, and these will be uploaded.
Thank you. And I couldn't hear the new rate. 18 point what?
44026.
Thank you.
Did you get the residential rate?
18.44026.
That's the levy. The residential increase right now is,
1.68
yes, ma'am.
and commercial 5.08.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions? Not a lot changed from last week, the other day, but any questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Morrissey?
Yeah, Michelle, with this, I've got, as soon as this is over with, I'll give you the 3 proposals that I have. But they don't include this 250,000, so would you figure that in to mine, or do you want me to redo mine and get them to you tomorrow?
We can add them.
Okay. And I had some other questions too, Michelle.
Okay.
When I was looking through this, and especially because I'm including fees and permits and that kind of stuff for additional revenue in budget proposals, I just was wondering why those properties that we lease in that, they're not included in fees when it comes down to permits and fees and that kind of stuff.
Can you say that again? Which properties?
Well, boy.
I'm not sure I'm following you.
Okay, so I was going through the different budgets that had been presented. The detailed ones, line by line.
Yep.
Because I was looking at that fee structure that you had given me last year.
Yep.
To compare, and I noticed that leading off some of these at the top, there's properties for rent or lease in different ones, and I was wondering why those are not included in that fee or in.
You mean in the increased fees?
why they're not even included in the ability to increase those and get some additional revenue.
Most of those would be multi-year arrangements, so you'd have to go through them one by one to see which ones could be increased.
But they could be, though. They could be added.
If they expire so that you can change the rate. You know,
Okay.
if you're leasing something to somebody for 2 years at a certain rate, we wouldn't be able to increase that during that time period. But if we got past that renewal date, then potentially those could be raised.
Okay,
A
so.
lot of those would be farmland, which Noel would need to address, but I think a lot of times that's based on the corn suitability rating of the area, so you may or may not be able to raise those, I think.
Okay, so individual ones I could just bring to your attention.
Potentially, we'd have to review them.
Okay. Let's see. And I was wondering, when we approve the non-bargaining unit raises, does that include department heads?
Yes.
So if a 2.5% increase is approved, then say a department head has a $100,000 annual salary versus somebody who had a $50,000 annual salary, they would get that department head would get a $2,500 increase as opposed to the $50,000 person getting $1,250.
Correct, because
So
they get the
that-
same
that-
percentage.
So that gap widens between the worker and the manager. Okay. If there was an additional combination building inspector or rental registration person added, would revenues go up slightly from having that position? I mean, just theoretically.
And a rental inspector, I assume that's possible. I think it would only, if I understand it correctly today, we only charge for re-inspections. So if a landlord has followed the code properly, there wouldn't be a re-inspection, and so there would not be any additional fees to support it. If a landlord has some issues with things that don't comply with code, and we have to go do a re-inspection, then there may be additional fees for that.
Okay.
So it would not automatically mean there would be more revenue.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Anything else, council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So just so I'm clear on this, Michelle, because I want to make sure that I get this clear, the residential increase is 1.68%, right?
Based on the proposal that we're giving you today, yes.
With this one. So just so that everyone who's watching and everyone who's here is clear, the Fed, which calculates the cost of living rate, is anticipating that the cost of living increase or inflation will be 2.1%. So we are keeping, in this proposal, residential increases below any sort of cost of living adjustment that we might see on some of the things that are tied to that,
For
based on
residential-
those numbers.
Yep, for residential properties, that would be true.
All right.
All right, anyone else?
One other quick question, Mr. Mayor. And what does that compute to dollar-wise? Do you have that on a house of $100,000 value?
The amount of taxes.
Yeah.
It's on your sheet at $1.40 per month, so I guess we'll just do that quick.
$10.60.
Oh,
gonna
I
be-
see it. I see it.
$14.64.
I'm just not even gonna trust myself in my head. $16.80 a year per 100,000 of assessed value.
You were waiting all day. I tell you what, I'm going home.
Sounded good.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Klein.
Isn't it true that this pandemic that's rolling across the country has placed us all in a position where we really can't see a clear picture of the economic situation of the city or the state or the country for the next several weeks?
It's making things a little fuzzy right now, yes.
And couldn't it also be true, since we are hearing that some states are closing all kinds of social venues, from bars to restaurants, so the airline industry is in distress, the cruise industry is in distress, just small potatoes here in town. And I don't mean by any stretch of the word that this is a small matter to the families involved, but we have people now who are out of work in the schools, who are not on a contract and who are hourly, and they're going to be suffering. We have all kinds of people who are headed into suffering, whether it's your need for your investments now because you're paying a nursing home bill now and your stocks have just crashed. Isn't that all true, that this throws everything into doubt?
Oh,
It certainly creates more uncertainty. I
Yes.
think today, I'm not prepared to say what could happen. And there are lots of experts that we need to talk to about that. My best thought is that we hope we do get that curve flattened and are able to get some things back to, we're having a new normal right now. I hope we're able to ease back toward what we would have called normal before this week.
The
Hopefully soon.
higher tax on the businesses really concerns me, because they're getting hit now. And now we're preparing documents that are going to hit them again.
And yeah, and these bills will be due, the first half of it would be due in September, so.
We
they
have
a
layoffs
few
right here in
months,
town, and that's just the tip of the iceberg if this gets worse in Waterloo.
Mr. Mayor.
we'll have layoffs, but, you know, some parts of this formula, for instance, what was the commercial last year? Was it an incredible increase, or did the state take some
Commercial-
measure?
Yeah, our commercial properties have enjoyed a cumulative reduction over the last several years. Give me one moment here and I'll be able to tell you where we're at. Oops, missing my mouse. All right, let's do it the hard way.
While she's figuring that, Mayor, may I share just one little thing?
Yeah, I was going to hit some follow-up comments to that, and then Mr. Greider is there, but Mr. Greider, will you allow her?
I'll defer.
Well, you don't have to defer, we're coming right back to you.
Since I got on the council, I go to a specific restaurant a lot to meet with council people who want to have a chat, to meet with business people who want to have a chat. One of the waitresses that works there invested in a restaurant in this last year and a half, and they are just seeing it become successful. They just bought a second one. And now this threat is looming over this young couple. She's still waitressing at the first restaurant to try to make this go. And my heart just aches for her, and it just aches for everyone involved in this economic crisis.
Absolutely, and I don't think there's anyone up here that will disagree, and we're hoping we have an incredible federal partner that's going to help us along through this process.
So, and I went back all the way to 2010 because we've only had, this is only the second year since 2010 that commercial properties see an increase. That cumulative reduction is over 10%, an average reduction of nearly 1% a year since
Okay.
2010 that commercial properties have realized.
Okay. All right, thank you, Michelle. Mr. Greider.
So Michelle, so option 8, the prior year tax dollars, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this one. This would keep basically everything as it is status quo, right? From the fiscal year 20 in terms of dollar amount,
Right.
is that my understanding?
Only the dollar amount would be static.
Right,
You would have to see, I would call it drastic changes in services, because we would have to, that would be a reduction of 2.2 million plus the 1.8 that we're going up. So you're talking about cutting almost $4 million.
Right, and even that has a small increase for commercial properties. And so,
Correct.
and I understand that these maybe aren't necessarily your department, but a almost $4 million cut in the city budget, we're talking about cutting essential EMS, fire, police service, very likely considering how much of the budget they make up. If we were to dig that deep into the bone, we're past muscle at that point and clearly beyond fat, but we are digging into the very marrow of the bone of this city if we did something like that with 4 million in cuts.
It would be extremely difficult to do it without impacting the public safety category. For example, as soon as I can get to the right row here. So our entire, you have your Excels, the total community and economic development area, taxes proposed for that are $550,000 for the whole year. And if we go to our cultural and recreation, that entire area is 6.3 million, but that's about almost half of that entire section is generally covered by fees. So if you would reduce that area by 4 million, it would actually end up needing to be more than that because you probably couldn't generate the 6 million, or 4 million, I'm sorry, 4 million in revenue we expected to generate, so it would have an even larger impact. So it is very difficult to do it without touching public. And when you said essential service, I'm just assuming you are referring to public safety.
Yes, and I want to be very clear that my heart absolutely 110% goes out to the people who are being negatively affected. I found out this morning that I will not be going to my day job for at very least the next month. So this is personal to me. This is personal to the hundreds of people I work with every day and thousands of people. But at a time when we are dealing with a very large uncertain situation that no one up here called for or asked for or did anything to cause, it seems folly to talk about moving to tax rates where we won't be able to provide the very key and essential services that are going to be necessary to flatten that curve that we've talked about. I understand that these are tough, but businesses did have the rollback over the last several years. This is what it is. But we are not asking, this budget is not asking for the moon and back. This is asking to keep the city functional during a national and international crisis, according to World Health Organization and others. So this isn't asking too much. This is asking us to do our due diligence and keep our city safe.
All right. Mr. Bozen.
And I do hope with the legislature recessing for 30 days that they take into consideration that we have set our budgets and throughout the entire state and don't come back and bite us with cuts and rollback and cuts and everything, not rollback, but backfill and cuts and everything else, because they're going to have to step up and actually, for once, represent the cities.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Can we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion been made with second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.